The rain in Pittsburgh doesn't just fall, it scours. It's a relentless gray deluge that strips the paint from the steel mills and the hope from a man's bones. It was midnight in mid-February, a biting, sleet-filled gale howling off the black waters of the Monongahela River. When I stood on the porch of a $1 million mansion in Upper St. Clair, I had $14 in my pocket, quarter tank of gas in a truck with a dying alternator, and the kind of bone-deep exhaustion that makes your teeth ache. I wasn't just tired, I was flickering out. I knocked. I didn't just tap, I hammered until my knuckles bled. My brother, Donovan, the senior vice president of global logistics, finally answered. He was wrapped in a charcoal silk robe that probably cost more than my shop's monthly rent. He didn't open the heavy storm door. He just peered through the double-paned glass like I was a stray dog he was considering calling animal control on. "Donovan," I said, my breath hitching in the freezing air, turning into a ghost between us. "I'm underwater." The contractor skipped out on the stadium wiring job. "I've lost the shop, Don. Everything. I just need a couch for a week. Just until I can ground myself." Donovan didn't look at my face. He looked at his watch, a gold Breitling that caught the porch light like a predator's eye. Then he looked at me with a cold, corporate pity that was far worse than anger. "Sylvester, honestly, this is a really bad time. Sylvie has her sisters over for the charity gala, and we have the board members coming by tomorrow. I can't have you, like this, in the house. It's just not a good fit. I'm sure there's a shelter downtown with space. It's 18 degrees out here, Don," I whispered, my voice cracking. "I'm your brother. I understand that," he said, his hand already moving toward the deadbolt. "But right now, my reputation is on the line. Try calling a church in the morning. They're set up for this kind of thing." The click of that lock was the loudest sound I've ever heard. It wasn't just metal hitting metal. It was the sound of 30 years of shared history being deleted in a single second. I walked back to my truck, my boots crunching on the frozen slush of his driveway. I slept in a giant Eagle parking lot that night, the engine off to save the slash. Last drops of gas wrapped in a greasy, thin moving blanket. I shivered until my vision blurred and the world turned into a gray haze of pain. Welcome back to Revenge Justice. Grab your coffee, lock your doors, and listen closely. Because the people in these stories, the Donovans of the world, think they can walk over you and never look back. They forget that the person they stepped on is the same one who knows exactly where the foundations are weak. They forget that a master electrician knows how to find the short circuit that brings the whole house down. Drop a comment with your city. I want to know who's watching the Scales tip today. And if you haven't subscribed, do it now. You're going to want to see how I dismantled Donovan's world brick by brick. My name is Sylvester Marchand. 52 years old, I'm a master electrician. Spent my life crawling through the literal guts of this city, wiring skyscrapers that touch the clouds, fixing the ancient sparking fuse boxes in Southside bars, and making sure the lights stay on when the world gets dark. I'm a man of wires, currents, and resistance. I understand a fundamental truth. If you cross the wrong lines, things burn. For a year, I lived in the shadows. But I wasn't alone. My friend Miller, a man whose life I'd saved from a literal electrical fire a decade ago, didn't hesitate. When I called him from that frozen parking lot, he didn't ask about his reputation or the fit. He said, "My guest room is empty, and I've got a commercial lead in Wexford that needs a lead foreman who isn't a coward. Get here in 20 minutes. I worked 20-hour days." I stopped being the nice guy who let late payments slide. I hired a pit bull of a bookkeeper named Sarah who tracked down the contractor who robbed me. We didn't just sue him, we hunted him. We put a lien on his primary residence, froze his equipment, and handed a thick file to the IRS about his off-the-books labor. By August, I had my $26,000 back, plus interest, plus blood tax. By October, I had a new shop, a fleet of 3 vans, and a reputation for being the most precise and most expensive electrician in the tri-state area. By December, I was the one winning the multi-million-dollar municipal bids that Donovan's logistics firm used to facilitate. I wasn't just back. I was the one holding the switch. Then came the January freeze. 1 year and 11 days after Donovan locked that door, I was sitting in my new home, a solid brick fortress in MT Lebanon, drinking a dark roast and watching the snow blanket the hills when the doorbell rang. I opened it, and for a second, I thought I was looking at a ghost. There stood Donovan. He wasn't wearing the silk robe. He was wearing an old stained parka, and his face looked like it had been dragged through a gravel pit. His logistics firm had been gutted by a massive fraud scandal. Turns out his underlings were as cold-blooded as he was. His rental properties were in foreclosure. Sylvie, the wife who couldn't have a dirty brother in the house, had left him 3 weeks prior, taking the luxury SUV, the offshore accounts, and the dignity he thought he'd bought. "Sylvester," he croaked, his lips blue. "I'm in trouble. The bank is moving in." "The lights? They turned the lights off yesterday. I just need a place to stay. Maybe a bridge loan. Just a few thousand to clear the immediate arrears so I can keep the house." I didn't say a word. I stepped back and gestured for him to come in. The warmth of my home hit him like a physical blow. My wife Renee stood in the kitchen doorway. She didn't offer him coffee. She didn't offer him a seat. Just watched him with the eyes of a woman who remembered me shivering in a parking lot. While my brother slept on 800 thread count sheets, I sat him down at my granite island. I let him talk for 30 minutes. I let him cry. I let him talk about family and blood and how much he regretted that night. He actually used the word mistake. I leaned in, the silence of the kitchen becoming heavy, suffocating. "Donovan," I said, my voice as cold as the slush in his driveway. "I slept in my truck in 18-degree weather because you couldn't be bothered to move a guest towel for your own brother. I want you to feel that memory. I want it to live in your head every time you look at me. I didn't just lose a shop that night. I lost a brother, and I don't give loans to strangers." He put his head in his hands, sobbing. "I know. I'm a coward, Sylvester. Please, I have nowhere else. The shelters are full." "Oh, I'm going to help you, Don," I said. His head snapped up, a pathetic, desperate hope gleaming in his eyes. But I continued, "I am an electrician. I deal in grounded circuits. Everything must balance. The universe demands an equal and opposite reaction for every action. You want a loan? Fine. I've already spoken to my lawyers. I am buying your debt from the bank at a discount. I am the new lien holder on your property. You will live in my house, but not in the guest room. You'll be in the unfinished basement on a cot. And you will work for my crew. You'll be pulling heavy gauge wire in crawl spaces filled with spiders and dirt. You'll be the low man on the totem pole. Every cent you earn goes toward paying back the debt you owe me with the exact same predatory interest rate the bank was charging you." He gasped, his face turning a shade of gray I'd only seen on dead circuits. "You want me to be your laborer at my age in front of your guys?" I was a senior vice president. "It's a bad time to negotiate, Don," I said, echoing his own words back to him with a razored smile. "It's not a good fit for me to just give you a handout. This is the only way. You can take the wire strippers, or you can go find that shelter downtown. I hear the coffee there is still terrible." He sat there utterly broken. He realized the revenge wasn't that I was turning him away. The revenge was that I was bringing him in, but I was stripping him of everything that made him Donovan. I took his pride, his titles, and his ego. I became his boss, his landlord, and his bank. If you've made it this far, do us a favor, subscribe. Justice isn't always about a loud explosion or a viral video. Sometimes it's about the quiet, steady hum of a perfectly balanced circuit. It's about waiting for the right moment to flip the switch. Donovan works for me now. He's currently in a damp basement in East Liberty, shivering in the draft while he staples Romex to a joist. His hands are calloused, his back aches, And he calls me boss in front of 20-year-old apprentices who don't even know his name. Every Sunday, he sits at the far end of my table and eats the meal my wife prepares. He eats in silence, knowing that he only has a roof over his head because the man he abandoned was capable enough to build an empire out of the very cold. He was left to die in. I still remember the parking lot. I still remember the $14. I still remember the sound of that deadbolt. But now, when I look at the gold Breitlings sitting in my safe, one Donovan had to hawk to pay his first month's management fee, to me, I realize that the power is finally where it belongs. I didn't just survive the storm. I became the storm. My name is Sylvester Marchand. This is Revenge Justice. The lights are officially back on, are yours. Because if you think you can flip the switch on the wrong person, just remember, someone like me is always waiting in the dark, and we know exactly how to wire your downfall. Stay grounded or get burned. The choice is yours. The city of Pittsburgh is quiet tonight, but under the streets, the current is moving. It's flowing through the wires I laid, powering the homes of people who know the value of a hard day's work. And in the basement of my house, my brother is learning that some debts can never be fully paid. They can only be managed. Donovan thought he was the one in control because he sat in a high-back chair and moved numbers on a screen. He forgot that numbers don't keep you warm. Loyalty keeps. You warm brotherhood keeps you warm. Now, he spends his days in the dark, literal and metaphorical, trying to reconnect the pieces of a life he shattered with a single turn of a key. Every time I see him flinch when a spark flies, I feel a little bit more of that February chill leave. My bones? People ask me if it's cruel. I tell them it's just physics. For every action, there is a reaction. I'm just the medium through which that reaction is delivered. So, to the bosses who think their employees are replaceable, to the vice presidents who think their family is a burden, and to anyone who has ever clicked a lock on someone in need, watch your breakers, 'cause the man in the van outside might just be me, and I'm not here to fix your lights. I'm here to balance the scales. Revenge is a dish best served with 220 volts. See you in the next story. Keep your eyes open, and never ever underestimate the man who knows how the world is wired.